All right. New guest, new journey, new episode of the Jake Blanchard podcast. I'm joined today by Ernesto Mendowski. He's an author, a speaker, a consultant. He has a deep background and expertise in hospitality and technology. And he's been on his path to help teams design better systems, improve cash flow, and align to new ways of working. He's the author of a book called Newbie, and we're going to explore that today. Ernesto, nice to meet you, man, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Jake.
Dude,
Excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, first thing, I'm jealous of those glasses. I am. I have to wear them to see, the glasses in general, but you can pull off the circle frames. And I sat in, so I buy my frames at Costco, and I'm sitting in Costco and I put the circle ones on and I'm like, man, I wish I could pull this off. Like, I wish I could do it. And I got your bio and I saw pictures of you online. You have different colors of them. Tell me a story about the glasses, man. You got to have something there.
So I too was once a Costco glasses wearer. um, yeah, I got my first pair in high school at Costco, and I was back in my first year from college, and a friend of mine, she was working at a artistic, handmade glasses store.
Okay.
And so Kara invited me over and she said, "Hey, like, come, let's find you some glasses." And I walk into the store and just, I've never seen, of the 300 frames, anything like that ever before.
Yeah.
It was, and she basically pointed one out. The top was tortoise shell, kind of like yours.
Yeah.
And the bottom was like gunmetal. And it was like brown and blue, and it was just like so cool. I was like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah.
So I bought it then, and ever since then, every couple of years, I would just find these new frames to wear.
Dude.
A few years ago, my mom, she came back from a trip in France and was wearing these like sleek colored frames, and I said, "Where are those from?" She said, "Oh, they're from this store in Paris. It's called D. Now it's renamed. It's now called Easy Peasy."
Easy peasy.
And Easy Peasy. And they just have all these colors, and former Warby Parker people who were kind of pissed off that there's just like 3 colors in the whole collection. They're like, "We're going to make it fun." So yeah, they started this company, and I just have like 5 different frames, ship them out based on my mood,
Yeah, no, I dig that. I think it's one of those necessary accessories. Like, so I wear unnecessary accessories sometimes, bracelets, necklaces, things like that just remind me of my kids or have some kind of sentimental value. But I need to wear glasses. And I think I kind of, I don't know. I just I've never aligned internally as somebody who's a glasses wearer. So maybe I need to lean into that a little bit more. Maybe I need to go explore the world of designer or custom kind of frames or lenses.
It definitely brings out, like, you embody different sides of yourself.
No, heck yeah, man. Heck yeah.
The fun side, the creative side, it's fun.
Well, speaking of fun and creative, man, I've done some research on you. We were connected by a mutual contact, and I read some of the things that you're up to and that you're doing. I'm like, oh my God, this guy's perfect for the show. First off, maybe I gave a little intro about who I think you are based on some things that I read, but what would your introduction be? Like, who is Ernesto? And maybe a little background of where you're from, and then more specifically how you got into the hospitality space, and we can riff from there.
Yeah, totally. So I'm from Miami, born and raised here. When I was 18, my whole family's from around the world, and we'd always, whenever they'd come together in Miami, we'd eat at restaurants.
Yeah.
And I just kind of like fell in love with that idea of getting together around food. I met a restaurateur and said, "This is the path." And when I got to college, I kind of like threw an audible in there and said, "I want to do systems engineering." And no one had no idea what to tell me. Aside from, "You're a psycho, you're going into the restaurant industry, like, you're crazy." I graduated, I started working at Deloitte, big consulting
Oh
firm,
yeah.
and I was doing government contracts, and frankly, I hated it. It was not fun. Um, on the weekends, I signed up for a culinary business course so that I could write a business plan for a bakery that I had started. I learned how to bake bread, and I started baking in my apartment and like running around New York City and shipping this bread, this challah bread. And I told everyone, every instructor in that course about the challah, but I also told them about my interest in tech and analysis. And they all said, "Oh, you have to be a waiter." And I was like, "No, like I want to do technology." And the course finished and nothing happened. And a year later, one of the instructors came back to me and said, "Hey, like we need your help." And turns out there was a group in New York started by a very famous Danish restaurateur, the guy who, for the restaurant people out there, the guy who started Noma way back in the day, top restaurant in the world. Who's starting 10 restaurants and concepts all at the same time. And he brought me in to kind of put together the inventory and the sales and the employee and the scheduling and the reporting and like bringing together all the different tools.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like my first shot at doing it, at living that dream intersection that I've been searching for. That basically became a ninja with connecting systems and tools to reflect what's going on in businesses. It would be like a 3.5 year journey. I'd work at that group. I worked at a startup, and most recently, I worked at a restaurant group called The Palm, which is a family-owned steakhouse, 96 years old, and I would be their director of strategy, helping them totally reinvent how they operated. And the whole thing would lead to COVID. Right before COVID, we had to sell the business because of a bankruptcy issue with our owners.
Yeah.
And in our fire sale, we would sell to the largest restaurant group in the country, privately held restaurant group in the country. And my title would change to restaurant systems engineer. And ironically enough, I created the dream, but I hated it. I
Yeah,
actually
man. Isn't that funny how that
didn't.
works? It's just what happens when you get to the top of the mountain. You go, I don't know if this was a mountain I was supposed to climb.
Yeah, yeah. And I hated it. And I mean, I love restaurants, but I hated the job.
Yeah.
Um, and I had started writing a book a few years prior to that, and said, you know what, like I started writing this book. I'm gonna finish writing the book, and hopefully some inspirational downloads will appear in terms of my next steps.
Yeah.
And they did, and that's where kind of newbie came from.
Oh, very good, man. A lot to dive into from there. The first thing I want to do is talk about bread. Dude, just kind
Yeah,
of going back. You said what kind of bread was it again? You said the name, but I
it's called challah
challah
bread,
bread. What
Yeah,
is challah bread?
challah is it's a Jewish traditional bread.
Yeah.
Maybe if you go to like a brunch restaurant, you have like a French toast,
Yeah.
or a brioche. Challah is like Jewish brioche,
Okay.
basically.
I've heard of it. I've probably had it. I just, at the same time, it's, I'm from Alaska. I live in Idaho. I lean into cultural things, but I don't pretend to know anything. So I just want to make sure, I just want to make sure I have a baseline understanding of
Oh
what it is.
yeah, I gotta send you a loaf. I actually ship them around the country, so
Dude, I'll take a loaf
we'll
and,
get you some.
yeah, I'll haul at my friends and we can all eat it together. And so you started baking this bread, man. What drew you to baking bread? Like there's so many things that you can make in the kitchen. Like
Yeah.
what about bread was interesting? Was it childhood? Was it something fond memories, those types of things?
No,
Okay.
nothing childhood. Well, yeah, yes. Okay. Jewish household, every Friday night you do Shabbat dinner. You celebrate the Sabbath, Shabbat
Yeah.
in Hebrew. And there's always, you say a prayer over wine, and you rip a piece of bread and you eat challah in kind
Yeah.
of like a ritual. That was nice.
Yeah.
Like that was, yes, something happened in my childhood, but it isn't like the direct reason for why I started with that. I
Mm,
actually started, so I was interning in New York one summer at Barclays at a big bank, and this crazy food invention was released. It was called the cronut. Have you heard of the cronut?
Dude, you are teaching me so much.
So the cronut was a croissant and a donut, and this mad scientist basically put them together. So he created like a circular, super flaky type of pastry, and it like took New York City by storm. Like people were lining up like crazy, like outside the store, and I was like, I got to make a cronut. Like I have to make a cronut. So while I didn't create a cronut, but I invented what I call the dope witch, which was a Krispy Kreme donut, ice cream sandwich sliced in two. I put ice cream in the middle with the donut. I and then I panini pressed this donut so it was hot on the outside and cold on the inside. And so I started slinging these dope witches on campus in my last year of school. And after gaining 15 pounds and just saying, this is not sustainable, I have to find something new, another sandwich.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, maybe French toast sandwiches. And then I was like, oh, French toast, like brioche. Oh, like challah. Like I'm going to learn how to make challah bread and make my own French toast sandwich from scratch. So I learned how to make challah bread. I brought my first loaf to a mentor of mine. He looks at me and he's like, dude, forget the dope witch, the sandwich. Like, you're so complicated. Like, you're Jewish. People eat this every week. Just make challah. I was like, huh, okay, I'll make challah bread. And that's how Hollaback Bakery got started.
So do you still do that today?
I still make challah.
Yeah.
I don't sell it.
Okay.
It is, I think it's the best challah bread in the world.
Okay.
It's vegan. I use coconut oil. It's high quality sugar. Like it's a really good, healthy-ish
Yeah.
product, and people love it. And uh, this kind of like, I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about business systems,
Yeah, for
but
sure. But I'm like, no, let's talk about baked goods for about
no,
10 minutes.
I have a friend of mine. I have a friend of mine who's an artist, who's a creative, and we're in the same like networking group. And
Yeah.
whenever I stand up to introduce myself about blah 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 business systems, he'll always like follow on with my intro. We're like, and he makes the best challah bread in the world. So like, the audience,
Oh yeah.
and he always tells me, he's like, dude, you got to do challah, you got to do challah, you got to launch a bakery, you got to launch a bakery. And I'm like, I don't want to. Like, I'm not going to do the hours. 4 a.m. Like, not worth it.
Yeah.
But now, as I'm going into business systems, usually solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, like either they don't get it or they don't have time or they don't need it, or like understanding concepts like project management and automation and CRM, like it's too heady. So what I'm actually going to be doing in Q1, Q2 as I start my YouTube channel is launch Hollaback Bakery as a business that uses all of my concepts and frameworks and stuff to teach with the backdrop of a digital e-commerce bakery.
Dude, that's a beautiful concept. You know, one of the most impactful books that I ever read in my college was The Goal by Eli Gold.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so, you know,
yeah.
it's so funny because so many business books that you interact with are so academic and chapter 2, chapter 3, and it's this, learning objectives and this and that. And like Goldratt like wrote like a fiction novel where
Sorry.
this guy is walking around trying to figure out what's wrong in this manufacturing facility and going on Boy Scout retreats and stuff. And it's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's so interesting. And that's, I mean, the learning that we do today because of how entertained we are as a species. If you can't find a way to put it in terms where people can ingest quickly and time collapse that learning without
Mm-hmm.
making it super academic, you're going to lose their attention, man. So good on you for
Thank you.
using that medium. And I'm looking forward to that. So you're thinking January, February launch?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure like the YouTube channel will come. I mean, launch, it'll start soon, and I'll just start creating
Yeah.
weekly videos. But yeah, definitely by January.
Yeah.
For sure.
So then we talked about how you kept a foot into the space of food. I mean, it's really what it is, right? You enjoy food, you enjoy community, those types of things. You had a yearning to do something, obviously, and you're making this path merge with process engineering. You went and worked for a big consulting firm. I've worked with
Yeah.
a lot of those firms. I haven't worked for them, but I've worked in conjunction with them on various projects and things like that. I know how sitting in a conference room for 10 to 12 hours a day, building slides and digging through it
Be
all can
amazing.
feel. Yeah, it's so amazing. Um, and then, again, you get into the space, you realize, hey, I found my dream job. Oops, not exactly what I was hoping for. What are you doing now? And how are you leveraging the book or leveraging frameworks or systems that you've built to help
Yeah.
businesses? And what space is that in?
Yeah. So, so I had started writing this book because I was in the restaurants, and I really wanted it to be a guide for the next restaurant analyst. Um, Ultimately, I would go off on a journey with my friends in the forest one weekend and come back a renewed man
Oh
with
yeah, did
a
little
whole new
mother
vision.
ayahuasca there.
A little, yeah. And I realized the story was much bigger than food. It was much bigger than just me. It was a story of all of us. It's a story that
Yeah.
how, you asked about my honeycombs in the back, but my whole story is inspired by bees and how bees make honey. So when bees make honey, they go to different flowers, they're extracting nectar, they transfer pollen, the flowers create fruit, the animals and the people eat the fruit, and then the bees go back to the hives to create honey that they ultimately survive off of. We are the same. We go to different jobs. We are reading. We're meeting different people, like what we're doing right now. We go to conferences. We're extracting these lessons, these insights, this knowledge, and as we also go on our journey to different organizations, to different people, and transfer that knowledge, they grow, we grow. Everyone's kind of growing together, and then we go back to our own hive and create this honey, which is the unique intersection of all of it, of everything. I happen to have been doing it in restaurants and tech and food and whatever, and I was doing a job. Uh, you now are a change management consultant. You're creating your company. You're kind of offering that unique intersection back, and we're all kind of doing this. We're all creating our honey. And so when I finished the book, I said, I'm going to share this power of cross pollination with the world and the message, and really like hopefully to inspire people to discover that honey, productize it, and go back to market with that honey. Now, specifically, my honey that I'm offering is this kind of intersection of business systems, business implementation, helping the founders who are building these companies actually build the CRM, actually build the project management system. Like these founders, it's not that they're too busy. I mean, well, they're too busy, they're too focused on the vision,
Yeah.
they're too emotional, they don't have time, they don't have the skill set, whatever it is, the structure is not there. And so we kind of come in, help like build the structure for them so that they can ultimately raise their team higher, perform better, bottom line results, yada, yada, yada.
Absolutely. And there's certain points in time where the founder absolutely has to stay in their zone of genius and not get mired down into the day-to-day. And
Totally.
every entrepreneur is scared, especially, and I've worked with a handful of entrepreneurs that are have built a 8-figure business heading toward 9 figures, right? And they're growing and they're scaling and they're doing all these things, and they've always wanted to stay out of the corporateness of things, the processes, the procedures, the
Right.
checklists and the protocols. And you're like, hey, by the way, like variation is the enemy of quality. If we don't map the process, we can't see down the line. We don't know what to
Right.
expect. We don't know how communication flows. If we're not meeting at the right time, then we're just having meetings that suck. Like we need corporate governance and we need process mapping and we need to understand our tech stack and what integrates with what to create automation. If you're not doing that, you're always going to be wondering why people are underperforming or not, giving you what you want or need. And sometimes the owner has to step away and allow somebody with outside eyes to come in and build
To do
that
that.
structure. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Have you ever read the book, The 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership?
No, I haven't.
It's my new Bible.
Is it really? Tell me about it.
It's written by three people, Chapman, I can't remember, Detmer and something else.
Sure.
White book, red text.
Yeah.
Basically, it was the first book that I read that kind of brought this elevated language, this awareness, the consciousness, like the intention, like at this, like right next to the process, the structure, like the need for this. Because, when you have process and structure, you have integrity. When you have integrity, a lot of people buy into you. They buy into your vision. You have integrity. You don't need to hold people accountable because like they're their word. And it was kind of the first time that I read a book about structure that actually like felt amazing.
Yeah.
Usually people like hear words like compliance and they're like, like
Yeah.
screw the expense report. But like no, like necessary.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like another North Star, like between bringing fun and joy and Challah and business systems together. It's like, how can you make all this stuff exciting, entertaining, enjoyable for the people at the top and at the bottom and everyone in between? Like, how's everyone kind of growing together?
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, like words like compliance or audit or any kind of management where you're verifying that somebody has done a task in some way,
Yeah.
shape, or form is so demonized. But it's like to reframe that, it's saying like, hey, like when we design systems, if we're not able to clearly articulate what good quality is and what's expected consistently, and we can't put an overarching view,
Guideline. Yeah.
visibility, guideline, and empower management to hold that standard, to hold that line for us, it'll fall apart and everything breaks down. And then we start dissatisfying customers. And then all of a sudden the value of our company goes down. And all of a sudden we're putting out fires instead of growing the business. And nobody wants to do that.
No.
Yeah. So it becomes table stakes at a certain point.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
So your customers, what is the position that they're in? Like I've talked about maybe some of these demographics about the trajectory of growth, maybe 7 going on 8
Yeah.
years, those types of things. But what's your
I've
experience?
I my like title for the customer is a scaling startup operator.
Okay.
It's someone who started a business in the last 5 years. They are between 100 all the way up to 1 million in sales.
Yeah.
Maybe they're working alone, maybe they're working with a team, but the common demographic is that they want to 5x. They want to grow, they want to hire, they want to 10x the amount of customers that they're dealing with. And the key element is that they want this. A lot of people are starting their business and they're just like, oh, like, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I was talking to a client yesterday and I'm like, what's your vision for your? He's like, we'll see, like whatever opportunity presents itself. I'm like, no, that's not compelling enough. It's not compelling enough for you to change how you're operating today because a we'll see just means like, we'll be status quo and we'll see what happens in 6 months. But like, that doesn't really work with me or with anyone who's trying to implement change.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. And then you use the word change, right? So there are the changes in process, right? And I heard this, I got change management certified through ProSci a number of years ago. One of the best analogies I've ever heard was project management or process improvement, are the bricks to the wall, and change management,
Mm-hmm.
the way that we rally around teams, is the mortar that binds all those bricks together in the world of business. And so when you go in and you're talking about kind of coming in with like a different kind of energy, less corporate energy, kind of fun, like exciting, like how do you impact the owner and how do you get them to see like what techniques do you use? I don't know. I'm just kind of I'm curious
Yeah,
about
good
what your
question.
approach is.
Well, first off, my branding is very orange.
Yeah, it is
Everything
super orange.
orange, exciting, bright, like, so from the beginning, like bright colors already like scientifically proves like passion, excitement, and like really catching your attention.
Yeah.
So those are some like subconscious things. Um, one, I really like to shift the language on like, what's your mission statement? Like when I sit down with someone and we do like visioning, like a visioning session or a vision board, like my framework is called the vision and vibes. Like, what are the vibes you want to create in your life,
Oh, love
in the
that.
boardroom, in with the team? Like, what are the vibes? And you know, we're millennials now, we're younger. Like people gravitate to like language, like
Yeah.
almost slang, like it like borders slang, but it's still professional, right? I still kind of maintain that professionalism with everyone.
Yeah.
So, you know, I've been doing a personal brand program all year, and they basically, you know, they encourage you to like come up with signature ways to get people's attention. So when I think of like my frameworks and how I call things, like I try to use a language that keeps people engaged. And
Yeah.
so, but it always starts with like the vision. Like what is the 1 year vision? Because you know, sometimes you say, what's your 5 year vision? And people like they cannot think that far. So I start with 1 year vision. Because when you got 1 year, we can quickly create execution and we can get quick wins just in 2 months. And that's where they're like, oh, okay, great, I'm bought in. Like, let's keep going.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I just did. I do some professional facilitation as well around strategic planning. So I dropped into a nonprofit for a month or two and was helping them get to, um, helping them through their strategic planning process. And instead of doing a 3 year strategic plan, I did a 1 year. I said, hey,
Yeah,
we're not even going to look that far. Like we have some disorganization here. We have a lot of work to do in the next year. Looking out 3 years, maybe a little overwhelming, a little nebulous with all the changes that
yeah,
we're making. Let's do one. And then like let's revisit it, you know, Q2, Q3, and then develop our 3 year strategic
yeah,
plan. But at baby steps, because we need action right now instead of like
yeah,
hopes and dreams. So I
yeah.
love that approach, and I love vibes. Holy smokes, I love vision and vibes. Like that, that is exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is for someone that does not want to lose the part of themselves that made the business. And
Exactly.
that is such the biggest fear when you're working with an entrepreneur or somebody who's growing or scaling is like, I don't want this to not be fun anymore. I want
Hmm.
the part of me that's fun and interesting and cool or whatever that made this product, that challah bread, that whatever that you're doing in your life that fires you up, to not disappear or erode over time. So good on you for coming in with the vibes, man.
Thank you, thank
I love
you.
that. Um, all right. So, you know, what's the deliverable? What's the outcome on these types of engagements? Like, and then how long do they usually last for you?
Yeah, those are great questions. I I'm just in my second year of
Yeah.
business now, and my first year was a big experiment that you know didn't wasn't really didn't compound much, but I believe business systems is an ongoing thing. I mean, I believe it is, you know, forever. Like your if your business keeps growing, you're gonna need to keep building systems forever. I don't
Well,
think I'm the person to be there
right.
forever, but I ideally I've launched my agency, CPD Advisors, and we have started kind of like a membership program where you sign up for 6 months at a time. And when you sign up, you get access to me one-on-one time, you get access to group calls, you get access to all of my courses, all the videos kind of explaining these frameworks. Because yes, if you are a health coach or if you are a marketing agency or you are a manufacturing company, a sales process is a sales process is a sales process. There's 5 phases, there's tasks that happen at each phase, there are like triggers that get from one to like it's not so different. So
It used to be groundbreaking 10 to 12 years ago. There's a lot of commoditization in the space around sales funneling, sales whatever. It is how do you make that unique? and how do you tailor that?
Correct.
Yeah, absolutely.
Correct. So when people come, they sign up for 6 months at a time, and they work, and we work together, and they can choose to keep going. I had a client who a year ago, he was one, now he's 20 people, and he has like 4 teams, and we kind of keep meeting. I don't think I'm going to be there forever, but
Yeah.
until he hires a full-time COO who's going to be there doing what I'm doing full time, it's still like a solution that works, that helps them get to that mark.
Yeah. And what's the end goal? Like, so for me, my consulting firm, I want to go arm wrestle with Deloitte and McKinsey and the ones that are out there. Like I eventually want to be at least a small niche player in that space. And you and I, and
Yeah.
for folks listening, most people listening don't know that I own a management consulting firm. I don't usually talk about it. You're one of the few guests that come on that like directly overlaps in many of the things that I
Yeah.
do. So as you can tell, like I'm so fired up to talk about this because it's like it's adjacent to some of the things I do professionally. But there are, advisory firms, consulting firms, people who put together like large corporate strategies and
Sure.
drive those things forward. I like working with all types of businesses. I'm more on the corporate side. I like breaking down red tape and corporate structures. I like going into mature project management offices and gutting a lot of the administrative burden. I love
Yeah.
restructuring and rebuilding teams. That's what I do. I don't have as much, though I do work with a lot of small business. I don't have as much passion for the single entrepreneur
Sure.
and trying to scale a lot of that business. Though I
Sure.
like to keep a finger in it. So where are you at on that spectrum?
Yeah. I think I think over the next year and a half, 2 years, I'm gonna focus on the small businesses
Yeah.
to build out the frameworks. But I mentioned the conscious leadership book. I think a lot of these frameworks do scale. I mean, I think a lot of this scales up into just managing teams in general, like having good communication structure, like having good async policies. Now that like the work from home movement is kind of really ramping up, teams of all sizes, startup or corporate enterprise, like you need to be able to like keep people fired up and engaged about their work.
Yeah.
So I think while I'm like working on this like small business, like project management operations frameworks, like eventually I do want to probably get into the medium sized 50 to $100 million businesses that are in the toilet
Yeah.
and need like a
Turnarounds, baby.
total
Yeah.
turnaround.
Yeah, I love it.
That
Yeah, I'm so
that
passionate about that space too. That's
yeah,
awesome.
that was that's where I was at the restaurant group. Um, in my most recent job. Like I arrived, and in my second month, like $100 million lawsuit was awarded against us, and like my whole thing was like it turned into like a very fast dumpster fire. So I feel like that's where I could make the biggest impact. I
Yeah,
mean, not just in like the employees, but like investors and stakeholders. Like I think that's where like the biggest value. But we're working on getting there.
love it. I got 3 questions for you as we start to wrap up this podcast. Number 1, the process for writing your book. What was that like? How did you approach it? How long did it take you?
Yeah.
How did you structure your thoughts? And then when did you know it was done?
The second question is the most important question. I wrote and rewrote my book 5 times, literally. Um, I had no process. I just started kind of writing. Um, there are so many resources out there now if you want to write a book. So like I recommend you check them out. Scribe Media is the one run by Tucker Max. He has like pretty good resources out there if you want to write a book. But yeah, I wrote it a few times. I would just keep editing. And I really wasn't in this world of podcasting and YouTubing and this and that and personal brand. So I didn't actually realize that I was going through the same existential crisis that most creators face today, where they're like, re-recording the YouTube video 100 times before hitting send. But I would encourage people, if they are writing a book, one, keep it short, to the point. People's time is super valuable, and so if they're choosing to read your book, like make sure that's just like value packed. Tell your story, unless you're like one of those like 900-page book writers. But
Yeah.
if you're like a personal brand business type writing a book, like keep it short, keep it sweet, to the point, super resourceful, and like niche down on like that one message that you want to give. I wasn't as clear in the beginning. First it was about restaurants, and then eventually it became about bees. Um, you gotta like stay open. You gotta be open to the process, like be open and forgiving and
Yeah.
self-loving and all that stuff. But just like, right? Like you gotta just do it. There's so many different approaches out there with writing a book. I don't know if I'm like borderline rambling now.
No, no, not at all. I mean, I'm so curious about this process. I've heard, and I can't remember who said it. Everybody's got at least one book in them, right? Everybody's got something to share, some legacy to leave, some way that they look at the world, view the world, process information, can share. I haven't written mine yet, so anytime I have an author on, I always ask that question.
Oh, all right. Well, all right. Tactically speaking, you want to start with what is that message you want to share with the people?
Yeah.
B, like, map out your 5 points, 5 chapters, and you got to just come up with stories for each of those points. And just start bulleting. Like like you could bullet out your book, and every time you go through the process, like just make the book, like add the sub bullets until the sub bullets become paragraphs, and then it eventually becomes your book. But the only thing you are responsible for, the author, is just get an ugly copy, an ugly first draft. And then there's so many resources like online where you find editors for like $20 an hour, $25, $50 an hour, and they'll edit your whole manuscript for you. And I did that like 2 or 3 times. And from there, I hired someone to do the book cover design, and then I went to this website called Book Baby.
Whoever you found for that did a badass job. That is, I saw your
She's
book
amazing.
cover and I was like, holy shit! Like that I loved it. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like one of my good friends' wife. She's
Oh,
an
very
amazing
good.
graphic designer. It was like totally freestyle. It wasn't even like going to be a book. She just made the pattern, and I was like, "That's the pattern, and that's gonna be my branding forever."
I love it. Yeah, I'll have to reach out to her if I get this book out of me
Oh
at some
yeah,
point in time.
oh yeah, oh yeah.
Okay. All right. No, I appreciate your insights on that. Question number 2 that I've got for you. Your books behind you are ordered. Is that something that you like by color? So you got the white
Yeah.
and you kind of red and orange, you got the kind of dark blues through the yellows. Is there a rhyme and reason to what you're doing there? And then you also do that in other areas of your life, or is it aesthetics for the background?
I definitely saw it in the store, and I was like, "That's badass. I gotta do it."
Yeah. Okay.
Um, but it is Have you heard of Mary Kondo?
No, that's why
Mary,
I'm learning right now. You're just
yeah.
teaching me. Ernesto's taking me on a journey of learning about donut croissants and all kinds of
And
cool
challah
shit.
bread.
And challah bread.
um, so Mary Kondo's this Japanese tidying specialist. She teaches you how to. She wrote a book called The Life Changing Magic of Tidying Up. It's
Okay.
all about like tidying your life, like tidying your space, cleaning the energies. And so she always, she thinks people hoard a lot. She always teaches like, okay, like look at everything in your workspace. Look at your desk right now. Like, is there something that you don't absolutely love? Throw it away, or like put it in a box. Really throw it away because it doesn't really even belong in your possession anymore, or give it away, or recycle, upcycle, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, what I kind of drew from that in my kind of project management business systems philosophy is that you look at Scrum and the listeners who have no idea what Scrum is or sprint planning,
Sure.
when you start the week and you say, what do I want to get done this week? Basically, programmers say, like, I want to develop these 10 features or these 10 tasks. At the end of the week, they look what got done, they look at what didn't get done, and they give a reason why it didn't get done, and then they'll just reschedule it for the following week. And the
And
point is,
reprioritize, right? Yeah.
and reprioritize. Like, you got to revisit, you got to continuously kind of revisit your tasks, your projects, goals that you're not going to meet, and continuously like evaluate what is working, what happened, what didn't happen, why didn't it happen, and like when do I need it to happen to keep moving the ball forward. And I think not enough people like integrate that into their being. Like, they have a bunch of Word docs and checklists and Google Drive and so many files, and like, because everything's everywhere, like, we create our own chaos. And so I believe through structure and order, you can almost keep that ball moving forward, whether it's a project, side hustle, whatever in your life.
Yeah.
It's kind of like more of the philosophy.
Very good. Very good. All right. Last question. I read in, some a bio of you that you speak multiple languages. And you said at the beginning of the
Yeah.
podcast, you come from a multicultural background. I grew up in South Louisiana for the first 10 years of my life, and I got a small taste of the Cajun French culture that's down there. And I don't sound like it. Both my parents and all my family members on both sides have lived in Louisiana for hundreds of years, for the most part.
Wow.
And, so I have a deep heritage in that culture. Though it's not expressed in the things that I do. I think I can say the Pledge of Allegiance in French. I did martial arts for years. I still do martial arts now. I can count to 10 in
Wow.
Japanese. I'm proud of like those types of things. But I
Uh-huh.
can't imagine what it's like being able to speak multiple languages and having this, this family from like all these different places. What was that like for you growing up? And then as you reflect, how has it influenced what you're doing today?
Yeah, well, right now it's the World Cup, and I do not have a country that I'm cheering for because I don't know. I've never really had I've never really like identified with one
Yeah.
country. Like, yes, I was born in America, but like, I'm not like, oh, America. Like, it's
Yeah.
not me. When I was younger, I kind of like, I don't know, I was insecure. Like, oh, I don't have an identity. I don't have a sports team. I don't like identify with this one thing. And I think in my 20s, I realized, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, just be and accept. And as I kind of, through writing the book and cross pollinating and exploring and this and that, like, I think it's kind of one of my biggest strengths because I'm just so open to everything that I can almost drop in and say, hey, what's up? Like, just connect with whoever that is. And so, yeah, I speak a bunch of languages. It's cool. It's not cool. It just is,
Yeah, it is what it
we
is.
all have these cool quirks about ourselves, and it's fun when I can try. This summer we were in Israel, and I was with my wife, and I was like speaking in Hebrew with people, and she's also Israeli but doesn't speak Hebrew as well.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, like, got a good one.
Yeah,
Speak
for sure.
Hebrew.
For sure, man. Well, I have these I have these dreams. I mean, I do Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And I've been a practitioner of that for about 7 years. I compete. I love the sport, and I have a deep appreciation for Portuguese. I just
Mm-hmm.
an appreciation for the language and how it evolved, like Brazilian Portuguese, which I hear is
Mm-hmm.
a little bit different than Portugal Portuguese, and it's
Mm-hmm.
got a little more slang and it's spoken maybe a little faster at certain times, or whatever the uniqueness
Mm-hmm.
of the language there is in Brazil. And I have these dreams sometimes where I'm like I'm able to speak Portuguese, but I'm not putting the effort in to learn it, and I don't know what I need to get fired up to like actually put the time and effort and energy into learning a language, or if there's a way that I can learn languages really quickly that you would recommend. But I don't know. It's just something that I aspire to that I haven't checked that box yet.
I may have a funny suggestion for you.
Let's do it.
Just gotta sit down for a vision and vibe sesh and paint out Brazil, paint out, how those vibes will really enhance that jujitsu.
No, I tell you what, With that, I'm calling this episode of the podcast Vision and Vibes with Ernesto Mendowski. My
Let's
brother,
do it.
thank you for spending some time with me today. Thanks for sharing your knowledge, your passion, your journey with the audience as well. Want to make sure we cover anything that you want to touch on that maybe we didn't. And then also, where do the folks find you in the world? What's the best place to reach
Yeah.
out to you, engage with you, learn more about your business and you as a human?
Yeah. I just launched my website. It is ernestomandowski.com. So if you go there, you'll find more about my story. You can sign up for my newsletter. I share one tip, tool, resource to help building systems to compound cash flow in your business on a weekly basis. And you can follow me on Instagram. I'm most active in emails. I respond to every email that's written to me. And through that, I share more information. Like I have Notion templates, I have all sorts of different resources that I offer through the website that they'll learn about through the newsletter.
That's a beautiful thing, man. Hey, again, thanks for your time. Really awesome getting to know you. And I look forward to the next time you and I have an opportunity to speak, Ernesto.
Amen.
All
Thanks,
right, cheers.
Jake.